Hey, welcome to the first deep dive from You Heard with Nerds. I'm Brett,
I'm Dorian.
and we're going to talk about a couple things before we jump into it. Dorian and I are fresh off of our Rise of Skywalker experience, and so this is going to be a pretty raw overlook, just kind of what we're thinking. And again, we've seen this one time, and so keep that in mind. But I think you guys will like it. We're going to have some fun with it and just, give our opinions because they're very different. And so, but before we do that, we have a giveaway going. If you haven't heard from our previous episode, we're giving away a Star Wars Black Series action figure of Luke Skywalker. So if you want to win that, all you got to do is you got to check us out on Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook. You have to like our post when it comes to our podcast. So we're looking at specifically our episode 2 podcast. So you want to like that, you want to comment on that, and you want to share it. And with that said, we also want to throw it out there that you can also support this podcast directly on our Patreon. And that's at patreon.com/withnerds. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. It helps us to do more content like this. And so,
as they say in the business, keeps the mics on, keeps the lights on.
Exactly. Yep. Keeps the mics on, keeps the lights on. All right. Well, we're going to roll into just kind of a summary of the movie. And again, this is a spoiler infused podcast.
Yep.
This is not spoiler free. We are going into not deep stuff, but everything that has to do with this movie that we can remember. And so if this is your last warning, if you don't want to be spoiled, stop listening right now.
Get out, bro.
Get out. So, we just want to go over a summary of the movie. So, it opens up.
Yep. So the opening crawl basically makes it clear that the Emperor has made his presence known to the galaxy. And also in the opening crawl, Rey is training. Finn and Poe are fighting the First Order. Kylo is actually hunting down the Emperor because he believes that the Emperor is a threat to his title as Supreme Leader, and he would rather not have any competition in that field. So Kylo finds an artifact. I believe they called it the Wayfinder.
Yeah, it was the Wayfinder.
Okay, so the Wayfinder leads him to the Emperor on the Sith planet called Exegol, where we find out that Snoke was one of Palpatine's puppets.
Called it.
Yep, and Palpatine has been essentially preparing all these years with a fleet of Star Destroyers for like years and years on end. So he's
get it, but it was part of the movie.
He was busy.
Yes, very busy.
So Palpatine says that he will give Kylo the fleet of Star Destroyers if he joins him and kills Rey. Kylo agrees to this, but secretly has his own plans to dispose of the Emperor. So Rey is being trained by Leia and the books that she took from the tree in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Then Rey, Finn, and Poe now learn that the Emperor's return is that
it's inevitable. It's here.
It's
He's
inevitable.
back.
Yeah. They find, basically, long story short, they get information that tells them that the Emperor's back. He's as dangerous as ever. They need to do something about it. So they set out to essentially find where the Emperor is, and they chase down a lead. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to find another Wayfinder in order to like track down the Emperor, just like Kylo did at the beginning of the movie. They follow the lead to this desert planet. I know, desert planet in Star Wars, it's crazy.
Weird. So weird.
So
can't believe they do that.
While they are there, they meet Lando, who points them in the right direction. They get chased by stormtroopers who have these like sand motorcycles.
Those are sick.
They are sick, and they also have jetpacks as well.
Yep.
So after the chase, so they dispose of the stormtroopers. The chase scene ends where they find the place where they were looking for, which also happens to be the same ship that Rey's parents fly off in The Force Awakens here. So inside that ship, they find a Sith dagger that tells them where the artifact is, but only 3PO is the only person to translate, which you figure, okay, that's easy, right? But the kicker is 3PO has like a programming in his system that basically prevents him from actually deciphering the
Well, not deciphering, but actually speaking it.
or actually
what it actually means, because he knows what it means.
Right. So that being said, so then they start formulating a plan on how to get that information out of 3PO. While this is going on, the Knights of Ren show up. They capture Chewie. Rey and Kylo face off with each other. Like you probably seen the part in the trailer where Rey's jumping over the TIE fighter and all that. That's that scene. And then they also have like a force tug of war battle with like this spaceship that supposedly has Chewbacca on it.
Yep.
And
spoiler alert.
Yeah,
it does not.
It does not.
But I did drop my jaw.
You did, yes. But so long story short, Rey accidentally shoots, like she's using her power to the max, trying to like pull that ship back down to her.
Yeah, as Kylo's pulling his way, she's pulling her way.
Yep. And then she accidentally shoots some force lightning at the
like a lot of force lightning.
Yeah, at the ship, blows it up, and you think, oh, for a second Chewbacca is dead, and so do the main characters of this movie. So after that, what they do is they
you talk about Knights of Ren.
Oh yeah, let's talk about.
So the people that captured him are the Knights of Ren, which we've been getting teased for so long.
Yep.
About this group, they're very mysterious. They're working. Well, we find out directly for the Emperor, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so they're the ones that actually capture Chewie as he goes to help out Rey, basically, because Kylo's coming. And she knows it though.
Yeah. So then they end up fleeing to this planet called Kimji, which Poe has a history there. He has a old crew of
Flame too.
Yeah, old Flame. Yep. Basically has an old crew there. He meets up with them. Basically, they used to be spice runners, which
drug smugglers.
Yeah,
basically.
drug smugglers. Yeah. So while they're there, they get the information they need out of C-3PO, and which ultimately ends up having C-3PO getting his memory wiped. But it's okay because R2 like literally backs it up in like 5 minutes. Like later, well, not like 5 minutes.
No, it's like the end of the movie.
Like at the end of the movie, yeah, somewhere around there. But anyhow, so after that, the First Order shows up, and Kylo's ship actually shows up, and Rey feels Chewbacca on the ship. So she's like, okay, we gotta go save him. So they engage in this rescue mission where they go and they rescue Chewbacca, and all the while, Rey and Kylo are essentially confronting each other via the Force Bond. They're in two different places, but they can still like hurt each other with like lightsabers if they really want to.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, we're talking about the Force Bond in The Last Jedi. They have that connection where they can like talk to each other from far away. Now it's even enhanced more to where they're actually like they can feel each other
and like essentially like drop like physical items
and take physical items from each other. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. So, ultimately, where this leads is so they rescue Chewbacca. However, during like the confrontation of like Rey and Kylo tells Rey that she is a Palpatine. She's Emperor Palpatine's daughter.
Granddaughter.
My bad. Yeah. So after that,
which is poop.
So poop. So then after that, the information they got from C-3PO, they find out that the planet that it leads them to get the second Wayfinder is essentially a planet that has the remains of, I believe it's the Death Star, the second Death Star from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so they go there and they meet some people there that it's essentially they used to be like ex-stormtroopers that defected.
Yeah, it's kind of it helps, I think, Finn kind of feel less alone.
Well,
he was the only deserter.
Yeah, fleshes.
But other than that, it doesn't really add to his backstory at all. And they're they don't really do anything for the story.
Yep. so then So then Rey goes there. While she's there, she has like the vision of herself going to the dark side. That's where you see the dark Rey, the switchblade, the switchblade lightsaber kind of come into play. She fights kind of a dark vision of herself for like a couple of seconds, and then
not long.
Yeah, and then Kylo's there, basically still, and all the while I should mention Kylo's is essentially trying to recruit Rey to his side so they can both take down the Emperor here, essentially. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then they go and have a lightsaber fight on the remains of the Death Star, and let's see here. So while this is going on, Leia essentially sacrifices herself.
So before that, like just to give a little bit more commentary, mm-hmm. Rey is getting bested by Kylo.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Kylo is going hard.
Yeah.
Leia senses she's not doing well in the fight,
mm-hmm.
so she kind of sacrifices herself to send a vision basically of Han Solo to Ben.
Oh, is that what she did?
I think. I mean, there's no elaboration on it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a little, it's kind of ambiguous on exactly what happened on that one here, but yeah. So anyhow, so when this happens, Rey actually stabs Kylo with his own lightsaber while he's distracted, but then she feels that Leia, essentially sacrificed herself and died too. And they both kind of just stop fighting and just take a moment to mourn. Mm-hmm. And while this is happening, Rey actually uses Force Heal on Kylo.
This is the second time in the movie this has happened too. So like Force Heal is literally everywhere in the Star Wars universe now. Mandalorian, the comics, and now here.
It's so hot right now.
So hot.
So that being said, so she actually does heal Kylo Ren and then takes his ship and then leaves. And that ship happens to have the Wayfinder in it.
Yep.
The one from the beginning of the movie.
And I guess that's when Kylo gets his visions after she's gone.
Right, yeah. So then
he's by himself. So
then after that, Kylo essentially gets a vision of Han Solo. Mm-hmm. Han came back for this movie.
Yeah, that's pretty cool,
actually. Yeah, so basically it's essentially like it's more explained as a memory. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, he's remembering.
I think either Han or Kylo said that, but yeah.
Yeah. He's like, you're a memory, or something like that. And
yeah.
And he goes, I'll always kind of be with you, type of thing. I think Leia was kind of pulling that out of him almost, like, hey, making him see that because she knew that would be what turned him potentially. Yeah.
So that being said, so at that point, Kylo turns to is no longer, is redeemed. He basically throws away his lightsaber into the ocean and is now going to, be a light side Jedi now, essentially. Mm-hmm. So currently when this is going on, while Leia died, Finn and Poe are essentially made co-generals in her place.
Yep.
And then
the bro force is strong.
The bro force is strong. And then Rey essentially flees to Octu.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Because essentially she's pulling a Luke where she's like going into solitude because she's afraid of herself because she thinks that these visions that she's been having throughout the movie about her turning to the dark side are going to come to pass. And the fact that she had to deal with the fact that she's a Palpatine and her lineage essentially is just nothing but bad stuff. It kind of puts a damper on like her hope and like any motivation that she had.
Well, and she kind of knew that, it seemed like, for since like almost the beginning, like she's almost been repressing something.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird how they explained it, but basically she's kind of just been fighting these things, these feelings she's been figuring out or feeling.
Sure. So Luke shows up, gives Rey a pep talk, and also reveals in that same conversation that Leia was what was essentially a Jedi. She was like actually fully trained up for the most part.
Yeah, they were training, and they actually show a scene with an aged Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and and then she was full on training with Luke, lightsabers and all, and spinning and twirling and
all sorts of good
all
stuff.
that good stuff.
So, and at this point he also gives her Leia's lightsaber that was hidden away on the island, and raises the X-wing that he buried in the Ocean of Last Jedi.
Well, it was there before, but you see it in
and
I think Force Awakens too.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I'm not entirely sure, but so then she takes that X-wing, flies to Exegol to confront Palpatine, but she also
Red
leaves.
Five's back, baby.
Yep, and then she also leaves like a kind of like a tracking beacon, so people can track her and follow her into the fight, essentially. So she goes and confronts the Emperor, who the Emperor reveals that he never actually wanted Rey to die. He wanted her to take his place here because apparently he is like the embodiment of all the Sith. Like all the spirit of the Sith live within him.
Which I didn't get, but
so
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we will. So long story short, he almost convinces her to completely turn. Ben shows up, saves Rey from turning to the dark side, but Palpatine essentially leeches off of Ben and Rey's like force energy that they have between each other, and is able to be revived because during this time Palpatine's not like full on Palpatine. He's kind of a little bit of a husk of himself, or just like
he's like a corpse, like his missing fingers. His face
very decayed. Yeah, more so than he usually is here. But so then at that point he gets like unlimited power, has
unlimited power.
And basically shoots a bunch of force lightning into the sky, and we're not talking like just a little bit. We're talking like
enough to. It was like an EMP essentially.
Yeah, basically, like it's essentially is like taking out like all the resistance fighter ships, like not like destroying them, but like making them to where their engines and like all their power turns off, and they're kind of like in free fall here. Mm-hmm. So, and also he pushes Ben off of a cliff here, and it's just him and Rey now. Rey calls on the past generations of the old Jedi, and you don't get that big Force Ghost
no, you don't get
show, but you hear like all the voices. So you got like Obi-Wan, you got Qui-Gon
too. You got both actors.
Yeah, you got Qui-Gon Jinn, you got Anakin, Ahsoka. Quite a few.
Same. I think Mace Windu as well.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think Mace was in there.
Maybe
a couple other people were like voices in the Clone Wars.
Yeah. So like
obviously Luke.
Yep. So
Yoda.
Obviously Luke and Yoda. Yep. So that being said, so she calls upon their strength. She destroys and defeats Palpatine, but then she dies. And then Ben climbs back up from the cliff that he got thrown down from. Uses Force Heal on Rey. Rey is alive again. They kiss. And then Ben dies then and right after.
And then he disappears.
Yep. Just like Obi-Wan and Yoda and Luke. So after that,
the Resistance wins. There's a big celebration.
Yep, there's a big celebration, and then they go back to at least Rey and BB-8. They go back to Tatooine to the moisture farm that Luke grew up in.
To bury the lightsabers of Leia and
Luke. Yep.
Luke.
And then there's like this kind of passerby traveler says like, nobody's come here in a long time, and she asks him like, who are you? And then she says, I'm Rey Skywalker. And then at
that time too, the Force ghosts come to her. And it's
Leia and Luke's Force ghosts are seen in the distance, and then she looks out over the horizon, and then there's the twin setting suns, and then roll credits.
Boom.
So All right.
Oh man.
So a lot of details in there, and I try to make this as
brief as possible.
but there's a lot to
unpack.
yeah. So,
well, yeah. We're gonna talk about what we liked first, and then what we didn't necessarily like after, and then any other kind of thoughts. I mean, it's gonna be more freeform, I think, than our other show, where we're just gonna be kind of talking more when it comes to mine too, and we'll pace back through the summary just to fill in any things that we might have missed later. But okay, so opening scene. So we'll kind of start there, I guess.
Yeah. So you're talking like with Kylo just going murder rampage.
Well, so murder rampage, and then just like the dogfight, okay, so opening scenes were awesome because I really feel felt like pulled into the action that was going on.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I liked so at the beginning it's like a montage and Kylo's going to get that Wayfinder, and he's just owning people with the Knights of Ren.
Yeah,
they're going through.
Well, except like I don't think the Knights of Ren are with him at this point in time. I think it's just himself for the most part, and he's just.
I think the Knights of Ren are there.
I don't remember. I want to say they weren't, but
okay.
But either way, he's going to Exegol all by himself.
Yeah,
which I thought that's actually kind of cool. Just he's
like, I don't care. I'm gonna take care of it.
I'm just gonna handle it. Yeah.
No. So that was cool, and then basically we meet up with Poe and Finn, and they're going to get the intel basically from I don't know what the characters like, but basically we find out there's a mole inside of the First Order. Someone's leaking intel to the Resistance.
Yeah, which also, I mean, it doesn't make a huge difference, but it turns out to be General Hux.
Yeah, and not because he's a good guy, because he wants Kylo out of there because he wants power, which I thought would be more interesting if they were like, hey, he's a good guy.
I don't know.
It has been the whole time.
Yeah,
he's just kind of whiny.
I honestly liked the way they did it, just because I'm like, okay, you can kind of see that with like in the previous movies, he's not a big fan of Kylo, and
it's a power thing.
Yeah,
really.
it's a power thing. Yeah. So
yeah, but I thought after they got the intel and they took off, and they're like trying to light speed away, but we found out in The Last Jedi they can still track you through light speed.
Sure, yeah.
So they're doing like these light speed jumps.
Yeah.
No, they'll go into light speed, then they'll pull out and be somewhere different, and then try to blow up a couple ties, jump back to light speed.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish that scene kind of played out a little bit longer than it did. I feel like that whole concept of light speed jumping was a little too short, but
I liked it because it was kind of like.
But no, it was cool.
And it started out, the movie to me felt really reminiscent of almost like an Indiana Jones-esque like adventure movie.
Kind of, where they're trying to track down treasure and artifacts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty cool. They're trying to find the map to the planet and all that. And so I think that the movie in general was very rushed. I mean, it is only 2 hours and 21 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, it's roughly around there.
Yeah. It was great. I thought the action was great. The space dog fighting was great. I mean, it did make me like Poe a little more.
Yeah,
I didn't really care for him, like I said in episode 1 of our weekly show. Like when we were doing our theories, I was kind of like, I don't really care if he dies.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way about Finn right now, though, because we didn't really. There wasn't a reason for us to care. I don't think.
I mean, Finn. I feel like they wanted to like really do something with him, and I mean that something was in The Force Awakens here. Him defecting and all that, but outside of that, they really. I don't think had like much of a story or a plan for him. And
I think that's kind of just a major fail by the writers to really bring. And I'm trying to think and give grace because, when it comes to like the original trilogy, Han didn't really have a background.
No,
we didn't know that much about him. And so I'm trying to like kind of see it through that perspective too of,
Yeah.
And it's so hard to fit all those different storylines in there. But
Well, I do want to say just real quick on that thought. I mean, it's a little bit different with Finn and Han because in the original trilogy, Han had like major roles that he was playing here. Whereas
for sure.
Whereas like Finn, I feel like his role, like at least in these last two movies, has definitely been played down quite a bit to the point where it's just like they weren't entirely sure what to do with him, so we'll just give him something to do.
Yeah, kind of. I totally get what you're saying with that. I feel like it could have been handled a lot better. That's probably the one character where I'm like, I think you guys really missed on this.
I mean, I think
especially sorry to cut you off,
but
especially with them hinting that he is Force adept, Force sensitive.
Yeah, so that's one thing we didn't talk about in our summary. So it is essentially like hinted at / revealed that he is Force sensitive. When Rey dies, he feels that here.
And I think even before that, there have been instances where he felt something and then he talks about it with I can't remember the girl's name he meets, the other stormtroopers.
Yeah, but
he's like it's like a feeling.
Yeah, like the Force and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's kind of come full circle with that of not really understanding it to go like, okay, I have a better understanding. And so like our main three characters now, we have Rey, Finn, and Poe are all Force sensitive people. Poe was already confirmed a while ago that he's Force sensitive and came from a Force sensitive family.
Was that like his parents were Force sensitive?
Yeah, he was too. It was confirmed in the comic run they're doing Shattered Empire, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which makes sense because he's a freaking awesome pilot.
That is true. I mean, but then again, Han was, but I don't think he ever was like Force sensitive.
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right.
It would make sense if he was.
Yeah.
But. I think the only thing with Finn is he found out he wasn't alone, which kind of was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like there was a lot of people who defected from the First Order.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is kind of more in like the speculation, I guess, kind of territory. But like, if they do a sequel series, I don't know if that's a Disney Plus, which a lot of them already said, hey, you're not going to Disney Plus me. I guess that's John Boyega. He's just like, you're not going to Disney Plus me.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows what that means because there's a lot of awesome stuff coming to Disney Plus.
Yeah, I mean, I think Disney Plus will start kind of redefining television if, like, they have anything like the Mandalorian's budget for their other shows.
Oh, yeah, and they got huge names coming to their other series when it comes to all the Marvel stuff that they have in the works. But anyway, so... is Rey, and that's I guess at the end of it, is like, is Rey gonna train up people like Finn and Poe potentially, and do you think they're gonna do anything with that, or do you think this was a good ending? Because my thoughts are obviously different than Dorian's, and we talked about that in episode 2 of our weekly show, but we'll kind of share that again in just a moment.
So I mean, I would imagine if they did continue the story, yes, I mean Finn most definitely. Poe, I don't quite know. I feel like Poe is kind of like, he probably rather I can't really see him becoming a Jedi or like a Force user. I could see
just like personality wise.
I think personality wise and just like his role and responsibility wise, I think, but also but Finn I could definitely see that happening with. I mean, but I don't know if they will continue the story on beyond this point, just because I think they do want to just kind of leave it ambiguous. And, again, this is technically supposed to be the final chapter in the Skywalker saga. So it would kind of take away from that if you were going to continue the story beyond that here. But,
and if we want to talk just in like a broad stroke about, like I'm talking about my positives and you can obviously talk about yours in just a sec, but, I really feel like they did the best they could have with what they had.
I would agree with that, yes.
Meaning, like, with what Rian Johnson set them up with and kind of, in my opinion, backed them into a corner.
Yeah.
I feel like they did an awesome job with the material they were given.
Let me take that back. I would mostly agree with that. I think because in the first, 5 minutes of the movie, the majority of the questions that we had from episode 7.
Oh, it all got answered.
It got answered, which I mean, I do like that we got definitive answers. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like that really took out a lot of intrigue that movie could have happened. Like if things were actually playing out throughout the movie where they were finding stuff out, like let's say for example, like they never revealed that Palpatine was coming back in the trailers. Like,
Yeah, that would have been a huge reveal.
that would have been
I feel
insane reveal if they finally get to the end. They're both First Order and Resistance are tracking him down, and then they find out Palpatine's there. Yeah, I created Snoke. Yeah, I've been like running things behind the scenes this whole entire time. And oh yeah, by the way, you're my granddaughter, kiddo.
I know.
I mean,
yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I felt like this is probably the best we could have gotten from the material like that they
Sure.
were back, like the corner they were backed into, basically.
I
So,
mean,
what do
for
you
the
think?
most part.
What are your positives?
So my positives.
Or what did you like?
So, for one, I think this might be one of your negatives, but I like that we got to see the Sith as a cult.
No, I did kind of like that. I just
Okay.
didn't think it was explained at all. It wasn't.
It wasn't, but I kind of do like the mystery and the ambiguity behind it because, because like when Rey, confronts Palpatine, he's actually there's like a throne there, and she's essentially in an arena of essentially these guys in like black hoods and they're chanting and stuff
Yeah,
like
we
that.
don't- that's
And
all
I
we know
thought that
about
was
him.
cool and it was creepy.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Kylo's motivation at the beginning of the movie. And I think it should have been that way throughout the entire movie, where he's like, hey, I need to take down Palpatine because he's a threat, which I mean, technically he kind of does, but I feel like, it like him pseudo teaming up with Palpatine, like at the beginning kind of undercuts that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
So, let's see here. I do like that Rey's and Kylo's Force connection is even explored further.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it's kind of a little bit head scratching, but it does create for some cool like instances and like storytelling
And
devices.
cinematography, even
Yeah.
like it. I mean, like we said, okay, so I'm gonna try to paint a picture of what is seen. I mean, for most of you, you've probably already seen the movie if you're listening to this, but just I think they're giving us what we thought was going to happen in Last Jedi when they're seeing each other and in the same room and they reach out to touch each other and they actually feel it.
Oh yeah,
We see that full circle when they're having those connections from very far away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's as they're in the same room. Even so much so where one of the scenes, Rey is given a necklace by a child on the desert planet,
yeah,
and Kylo reaches out and grabs it from her and pulls it. And when the Force vision or that connection breaks, he still has on his ship, he has that necklace from her.
Yep.
And so, which later on, they capitalize on that because Rey uses it to give him a lightsaber.
Yep. They
And
do.
because he's getting his butt beat by the Knights of Ren,
Mm-hmm.
who, and in my opinion, I'll probably talk about that in a minute
Yeah.
too, but that was a huge letdown with the Knights of Ren. But
Yeah.
anyway, keep going with what you liked about
So
it.
yeah, no, I think the lightsaber fight they did with that, I think probably is the best lightsaber fight in this movie. To
Yeah,
be
for
honest with
sure.
you, just because it's very unique. It's something that we really haven't seen before. And yeah, I really like the cinematography and like just the choreography of it all. I do like how, how we start this movie, how like the main three characters, Poe, Finn, and Rey, they're all seasoned, like, in that dogfight, they're just like already know what to do. They're like, yeah, we've done this before. Let's get it done here and stuff like that. And also just, they have good chemistry with each other. I feel like.
Hugely.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the comedy too.
Yeah. So, and then, the desert, chase scene with,
Yes.
I think is, great. Like,
That was really fun.
yeah.
A lot of action in it. And
Yeah. No, I thought it was
super cool.
I thought it was good. Yes.
I was just waiting for someone to say, "Now this
Is pod
racing."
yeah. I was expecting Mad Max to show up in that
I know
one.
that is honestly what it felt like though. Was something out of Mad Max. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for
like Tom Hardy to like just be
Or
like
s-
dangling from like a truck or
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
totally.
Yep. So, yeah, and then like I mentioned earlier, I do like we got definitive answers for a change, especially considering how
Yeah, it was nice.
especially considering how like Last Jedi really wanted to like make sure that we didn't get like definitive answers, or really not like satisfying answers to like some of the big
They
questions.
left it ambiguous for a lot of those things we were really hoping for from or episode 7.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, like some of the things like, you know, that I had was like, you know, obviously who was Snoke? Snoke was nobody. He was a puppet of Palpatine. How the First Order came to be. So basically it was Palpatine essentially manipulating. That's why, you know, they were able to, you know, that's why it's so much like the Empire. It wasn't just like, oh, the Empire is just a natural state of thing that just reoccurs. Like, no, Palpatine.
he's been pulling the strings from.
He's basically been stoking the
Exegol.
embers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Which, that was a little far-fetched for me to believe that he had the army he did.
see, to me, that really wasn't, because he's had about 30 years to like prep here, and like seeing how Exegol is like a place that is very remote.
Well, it's mythical. That's what they thought.
Well, yeah, it's
They didn't
mythical.
think it was real.
Right, exactly. So I mean, he can like, you know, do a lot of stuff in secrecy here.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
So-
that's true.
So, and then I liked seeing Han again. I really thought there was no way they could convince Harrison Ford to come back for
Show
Han.
him the money.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
And I mean, I do
And they
like.
probably did.
I mean, I do like how they kind of twist their conversation that essentially Ben and Han had at Force Awakens when they're on the
Yeah,
catwalk.
totally.
Like basically, like
It was how you wanted it to play out if you wanted him to turn to the light.
right,
That's
exactly
what happened.
So I think that part was actually well done here. Like at least like
it was for sure.
like that part itself.
And
here.
even for like the shot itself, when it was almost like you were watching that scene again, but played out the way Han hoped it had played out.
Yeah,
And Leia,
exactly.
where
yeah.
he hands him the lightsaber, and instead of turning it on through his chest, he turns and he throws it away.
Exactly, yeah. So, and then like probably my last thing that I liked is I do like that they confirmed that Leia is a trained Jedi, and so I mean, because it does kind of answer the question of like why she was able to save herself in
Yes.
Last Jedi, like doing the Mary Poppins,
the Mary
Superman.
Poppins Superman thing.
Yep,
yeah.
exactly. And also it did kind of alleviate a point of contention I had at the beginning of the movie where, you know, she calls Rey calls Leia her master. I'm like, wait, what? But then like, you know, you find out that she actually is a Jedi. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, that makes sense. I mean, that was kind of like how, you know, before Force Awakens came out, how we all envisioned Leia to be was like she was just going to be training with Luke, and then she would become eventually a Jedi here, you know?
Yeah.
So, no, I did like that. So that pretty much sums it up for like the things that I liked.
Okay.
So,
Well, let's move into kind of what we didn't like or what we thought we were hoping might turn out differently.
mm-hmm.
I'll start. Man, okay. Now, when I say I don't like it, it doesn't mean I hated it. There are some stuff that I really didn't like, but just stuff maybe I wish it was different, I guess.
Or handled differently.
Or handled differently,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yep. So, man, okay, if you were looking for fan service, you found it in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, no, this is fan service the movie.
Yeah, honestly, we need to rename it hashtag fan service the movie.
Yeah.
Because literally that was okay. There was a lot of cool things and a lot of payoffs we got from that.
Mm-hmm.
But at times I felt that it was what dictated the entire story. The fan service plot points and even things that we talked about and, you know, theorizing about, you know, raise a Palpatine or raise this, raise that.
Yeah.
To me,
called it.
Yeah, I know. And I talked about that years ago, you know,
Yeah.
like, but I kind of moved away from it because of what Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi.
Sure.
Thinking she's from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like as much as it makes sense in the movie, it was just kind of, I felt like it was a little forced. And it was just kind of, I don't know. I think for the moral of the story, which was, you know, be yourself, and just because of your, you know,
no matter who you are,
because of what your family did doesn't dictate who you are.
Yeah, you are your own person.
Yeah, exactly. Which I thought was a really cool message that they put in there.
No, I think so too. Here, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I'm not really all that upset about Rey being a Palpatine, because here's the thing: if she was a Solo or a Skywalker, I feel like that would have been like so much more forced than like her being a Palpatine. I feel like especially when she already had interactions with like Han, Luke, and Leia, and none of these freaking guys decided to like say anything.
But they all knew she was a Palpatine.
They all knew, but it's like it just I don't know. I feel like if they were to if she was like one of theirs, it'd be like, why wouldn't you say something here?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really think of like any logical reason as to like why they would. So
yeah,
I think her being a Palpatine, like, and having her connected to as like as like a main character or whatever, because I mean that was kind of like what we all thought going into the Force or leaving the Force Awakens was like, yeah, who is she connected to? I feel like at least after Last Jedi, this is the only logical choice.
Yeah, for sure. Unless you're Kenobi potentially.
Kenobi you could do, but I feel like even that you kind of have to like do a little bit of do some groundwork in order to make that happen. And so
that brings another point, I guess, of something I just didn't like, and this I don't think this is in my notes, but we didn't get we got the voices. We didn't get any
Force Ghosts
except for Luke and Leia at the Luke when he gave her the pep talk.
Yep.
Luke and Leia at the end, which I was also like, okay, why isn't Ben with them?
Yeah,
that was weird.
That is weird, but I mean, it's like I don't know, but it's like
he's a Skywalker too.
Yeah, he's a Skywalker, and I mean, it's like here's the thing: is like if you are going to be called this like the end of like essentially the most
bring back everyone.
Yeah,
everyone,
the most famous movie franchise of all time, probably the most beloved movie franchise of all time, and you're not going to like ball out, get Liam Neeson in there, get Hayden Christensen, Obi-Wan Kenobi, like a live action version of what's her name?
Ahsoka Tano.
Ahsoka Tano. Yeah. It's like this would have been the movie and the time to do it.
Yeah, because there was so much mysticism towards the end with like the Sith cult, and I was like, okay, how are they going to fight all these guys? Because they were like in like almost like a stadium seating.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe this is when the Force Ghosts show up and just wipe all those guys out.
Yeah,
it really wasn't anything to do with that.
All we got was just like a couple of voiceovers, essentially, which, I mean, yeah.
It was weird that not even Yoda showed up. I guess Rey didn't know Yoda, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
even for like I don't know, just one conversation. That's a fan service I wish would have happened. That did not happen.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, to real quick on like that topic of fan service. I mean, we talked about it in our weekly show, which you can listen to right now on all the other platforms that we're on. But it's like I'm not really a like one of those people who thinks fan service is absolutely trash in any way, shape, or form.
No, it has to be there to some degree.
No, it absolutely has to be. But there's a way to do it well here. And I feel like, we talked about it, like Avengers Endgame really did it well with like, payoff moments like, Cap lifting Thor's hammer, and then also like Tony, like at the very end, like getting all the Infinity Stones and then making the snap and saying, I am Iron Man and stuff. Like, it's great.
Yeah, for sure.
But, but I mean, it's like, but it's kind of like, yeah, this movie, I felt like rather than like actually including fan service in like, a genuine way or in a way that led to the story or lent itself to the story, it was just like checking boxes. It's like, all right, we need to make sure we got our Lando reference in here. All right, we got to make sure we got the hologram chests in here, stuff like that.
Yeah, which those little things are okay for sure.
The little things, but it's like you get further up, and then it's kind of like, all right.
My other question with the whole Palpatine thing is like, who the heck is wanting to get with that guy? Some decrepit old, like, he wasn't even really a person. He was like he was literally a living corpse.
Yeah,
and so I don't know. Unless timeline wise, it doesn't make any sense to me because it still would have been after episode, or no, I guess it would have been before episode 6, right?
Yeah, it would have to have been before episode 6, yeah, because that like
so they were probably around the age of Luke and Leia, or would have been
possibly. I mean, I would imagine they were probably like an illegitimate child.
It could have been, I guess, in between 3 and 4 is when he could have had kids.
It's a possibility, yeah. I think so, but I think I mean, obviously, you know, they'll probably explore that in a book or a comic or something along those lines, just because there are a lot of questions. Because, I mean, Rey's parents are, you know, are essentially nobody. They're not like anybody special in like the grand scheme of things, but they were people that were trying to hide Rey away so that Palpatine would not get to her.
Yeah, so they obviously weren't dark, like they probably weren't dark side users
well, they were good guys essentially
Yeah.
here. So yeah, it's
It sounded like almost like they might have been part of the resistance
almost, yeah. So
or the rebels at that point. So
yeah.
I hope we do get more information on her parents though. Just kind of maybe just a little bit, like you're saying from like a comic or a little thing in a book.
Well, I mean, yeah, because it's like because it does raise the question as so like, okay, well, why is Palpatine's daughter / son, because we don't know exactly, you know, which side you know, Rey's parents falls into here, whether or not it's the mom or the dad that's
Right,
a Palpatine.
yeah.
But yeah, basically it's like, you know, okay, well, like, why are her parents good guys here, you know?
Yeah.
Because you would have the expectation that they probably wouldn't be, but
Oh, for sure. So depending on who the mom was, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
So kind of something else is just briefly talking about that Reylo, I guess we could call it connection, the Rey and Kylo connection. They didn't really unwrap it. I mean, it was a form of mysticism. There was, and Sidious does allude to it. He's like, there hasn't been this strong a connection to the Force in like 1,000 years, I think is what he said, or a really long time.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like a plot point that had to be there. And then he was able to just like suck the life out of him, which that was also a huge plot point when Rey was able to give some of her life to heal that snake thing.
Yeah.
Earlier in the movie, which we didn't really talk about that much because it doesn't really matter, or when she gave life to Kylo, and then inversely when he gave life to her and she was able to live again.
Yeah.
He knew about that power, obviously,
yeah.
And I don't know. I think the Force healing maybe is like is maybe not prevalent in the prequels, because maybe it was like almost like in Legends. I know there's Force heal, but the way they go that Sidious goes about it, he quotes himself in episode 3. I'm sure you caught on to that, but he goes like, the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Yep.
And so that's cool that we did get that kind of throwback to it.
Yeah.
And he was able to kind of suck the life out of them and bring life to himself, basically. But that's the thing, is there's a lot of unanswered things in this movie that I think they will tap into with comics and other media sources. Just the Emperor's just there. There's no explanation to how he got there, to how he lived from the
like
explosion,
from Return of the Jedi to now.
And so I thought that was kind of
Well, I mean, it's kind of like I feel like it's kind of like
he had a gigantic fleet of destroyers and a huge following with no explanation at all.
Well, and not to mention too, it's like, you know, this is the same guy who, you know, managed to, like, you know, write Luke's original lightsaber that he lost down the shaft in Empire Strikes Back, when he's like fighting Vader and gets his hand cut off. And you know, when they ask like, hey, how did you get this? He's like, oh, that's a story for another time. It's like, yeah, right. Like you couldn't come up with a good explanation as to how
and we still don't get an answer for that.
Yeah. You couldn't come up with a good explanation on how you got that lightsaber back. So you're just going to kind of like brush past it. And that's kind of what they did with Palpatine. And oddly enough, it's kind of funny because it's essentially the same thing. Something falls down a hole for like 30 years and it comes back.
You got Luke's hand.
Yep.
Darth Maul.
Yep.
And Palpatine.
Yep.
They're all fine.
Yeah.
Falling down anything and explosions happening doesn't mean anything in Star Wars.
No, it does not.
Yeah, so kind of moving on from like the Emperor, talking about Rey. I did like Rey's arc a lot. Kind of that dealing with who she comes from, I guess, and who she's gonna be, and kind of choosing that.
Yeah.
But something I do wish she would have done, because it is revealed at the end of the movie, she builds her own lightsaber.
Yep.
why didn't she do that before this movie happened, like Luke did in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah,
And it had a yellow blade. We've never seen that. Like,
yeah, that would have been cool.
In canon.
Well, and not to mention too, it's like, you know, I mean, obviously, I think, you know, JJ's all about that nostalgia, and so like when you have like Luke's and Anakin's saber being used in the movie, that's going to be the thing that he's going to try to go with. But no, I mean, it's like we see that she was fully capable the whole time of building her own saber, especially considering how like that saber gets wrecked at the end of Last Jedi.
I know. Yeah.
It's like, why didn't you just make that yellow lightsaber in the first place? But that's the thing is like, I think, you know,
I guess we really don't know how much time has passed and to where she buried the other sabers.
yeah, I mean, but I can't imagine it'd be like a year-long process to make a lightsaber here.
I don't know.
I don't know the time frame on lightsaber production here, but
it is hard.
But I mean, I think this also kind of cuts to a point of like an overall feeling where like, yeah, I mean, JJ could have totally had her have her yellow lightsaber at the beginning of this movie, but he didn't because he wanted to rely on the nostalgia factor. And I think that's, you know, just how he approaches a lot of things in this movie in general, rather than having, you know, somebody carve out their own identity or like have the story carve out its own identity and make something new and unique per se that like, you know, lends itself. He decides to like rely on the old tricks here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I do wish was kind of part of the movie, or at least there could have been something on maybe Octo 2, or she finds a crystal. Maybe she's there for a little bit.
Yeah,
stuff's kind of going on in the background.
Oh, dude,
people.
if she confronted Palpatine with the yellow lightsaber,
sick.
I'd probably be like, okay,
yeah,
let's go.
I did like the fact that Luke and Leia's lightsabers were used in the infight. So something we didn't elaborate on. So when Rey goes back after she's on Octo 2 talking to Luke, she goes back to. I'm going to mispronounce this island for the eternity.
Yeah,
Exegol.
Exegol, yeah.
Exegol. She goes back there to confront the Emperor, and I think it's Luke that tells her to bring Leia's saber.
Yeah.
So she has Luke and Leia's saber, and then when they're having that force, or when Kylo, or when Ben Solo shows up, because he's not Kylo Ren anymore, he doesn't have a lightsaber because he threw his away. And so he gets actually confronted by the Knights of Ren who are there.
I think we talked about this briefly here.
Yeah, I think very briefly. So I just wanted to talk about it in more detail because it kind of goes into my last point before that other thing that I don't want to talk about.
Sure, yeah.
But I will. Yeah. But so Kylo's getting his fanny kicked by the Knights of Ren because he doesn't have a weapon. And Rey senses this and she takes the lightsaber and puts it behind her back, and they have that connection moment. So Kylo, it cuts to Kylo reaching behind him, and now he has the blue lightsaber, Anakin's lightsaber, Luke's lightsaber, right there with him.
I was actually kind of surprised that.
I'm surprised he didn't have Leia's.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, why wouldn't you not give him his mom's lightsaber, JJ? Like,
I think part of it too was he's the last Skywalker.
I mean,
and so he's like, I am my uncle and my grandfather had this saber. This is my saber.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably was a hard decision. They probably could have gone either way, and it would have been fine.
Yeah, they could have. I mean, it does make sense. It just, I don't know.
Yeah, so he gets it, and you get to see some really cool lightsaber and acrobatics from Ben Solo.
Yeah.
Which I thought was awesome. And he owns all the Knights of Ren.
Yep.
I am so disappointed with that. I'm not with the fact he won, because I'm glad he beat them.
Yeah,
but the Knights of Ren in general was such a letdown, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, no, most definitely.
Because they came out right before this and said that these are force sensitive. I think they might have been ex-Jedi. We don't have that confirmed.
Yeah, and the Kylo Ren comic that we talked about on our weekly show here.
Yeah, and they came out and said it. I can't remember on what news source, but basically, or it might have been one of the books they released before, like the visual dictionary and stuff like that they do, which are all pretty cool.
Yeah.
But talking about how they all were force sensitive people, and you do see that, yes, in the comic when Ren is searching for force sensitives to be a part of the Knights of Ren.
Yeah.
But they didn't stand a chance against him. He pretty much annihilated them. Went up to help Rey.
Yeah.
And that's when I think it would have been cool. Like, let's say, I don't know, he lost that one. She throws that to him, and she pulls out her own or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or they never had the never fixed the Anakin Skywalker
legacy
lightsaber.
saber,
Yeah, they just had Leia's maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Because obviously Leia knew it was there.
Yeah, no, she did. So, and then so last point on your list here, so we talked about how we like dislike or just wish it was better. I think we could, but we don't hate it. I think this one we could fully say that we hated it, and I think this is definitely the worst part of the movie.
Yep, the kiss.
The kiss.
So, yeah, it's right after Rey's getting a barrage of Force lightning from the Emperor. And she has both lightsabers, and she's pushing back into him and annihilates all the Sith worshippers. Mm-hmm. And in turn, she uses so much of the Force that I think she just dies, basically.
Yeah.
And so she's dead for a while. You see many shots of a dead Rey. Mm-hmm. Kylo climbs up from that pit that the Emperor threw him into. Mm-hmm. He goes over to her, and he knows how to heal because he got healed by Rey. Kind of the same thing where Rey. You can figure out those Force things through fielding it to you, and so
well, I mean,
you get that in the Force Awakens with Rey and the Jedi mind trick because Kylo was probing her brain and stuff like that. So,
well, not to mention too, it's like Kylo has trained as a Jedi in the past, so I mean, he could have totally like learned it when he was training with Luke here. So I mean, it's not like this is something that came out of nowhere. There's definitely justification to like this power being used by Kylo here.
Sure. Yeah, and then so then she wakes up and he's alive for a little bit, and they look at each other and she's like, Ben, and then they kiss.
Yep.
And it's super lame and unnecessary in my opinion.
Yep.
It's fan service for those
Reylo
fans.
Yep.
And I don't know, it was just dumb.
Well,
I hated it.
Well, and I mean, here's the thing, like that I take the issue with is because it was if it actually had gone anywhere where they get married at the end of the movie and then they have like, a Skywalker Palpatine hybrid child or something like that, I'd be like, okay, that's actually kind of a cool
way to meld the two like
families. Essentially powerful Force users in the galaxy. Yeah. Like, don't mess with that kid.
Yeah, honestly.
But no, it's like, literally Ben dies like right then and there, like after that kiss. It was like a last minute romance that legitimately led nowhere.
Zero. Yeah.
It's like there's no reason for it whatsoever other than to like essentially the people who ship Rey and Kylo Ren. And even like this movie, like, I mean, here's the thing, like the other movies you could make a little bit of an argument, like, yeah, there could be potential there, but like this movie really does not like build up towards like them having a romantic relationship here, and it's like y'all were killing each other or trying to kill each other 5 minutes ago here.
Right,
It's like now you guys are like kissing each other. It's like, come on.
All right, so let's go into yours real quick.
All right, so we kind of touched on some of our.
Oh, for sure. There was.
Yeah, we had a little bit of
mix of
intersection.
it.
So I'm just gonna focus on like the things that we haven't talked about yet. So, so the main thing is like Leia's sacrifice, like because you interpreted it a different way. I honestly don't understand what she was doing. In all honesty, because I mean, you said that this was her essentially pulling out Han out of.
I think she kind of probed his like that vision to happen.
Right.
Like she was using the Force to evoke that memory or something. And then what I didn't get though was at the end when Kylo disappears, like Leia's body's still, she's dead, but she's covered.
Yeah.
In like a
yeah,
drape or something like that.
Yeah, shroud. Yeah.
And then when he disappears into the Force, she does too.
Yeah, so I mean, like that's not really elaborated on. And I mean, that's even if like that is what happened in the movie, I don't feel like it did a really good job on like really communicating to at least I felt that way to the audience of like this is exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, it kind of made it. That was a very ambiguous moment in that movie, but Kylo's redemption, I would say, is kind of forced. You know?
For sure.
I mean, here's the thing.
It kind of had to happen.
Well,
I feel like for this story at least.
And when we were discussing our theories, like a couple episodes ago, we were talking about like, Kylo coming to the light side and also him dying at the end. It's almost a guarantee because
it was very. It copied the Return of the Jedi in a huge way,
and it was foreshadowed. But I mean, the thing about it is like, I feel like the path that they put him on to get there, at least like in this movie, like he wasn't completely there. It's like I feel like there had to been like maybe a couple more scenes, or maybe even a whole another movie to where he's like starting to like actually come around here.
I think the things that they kind of foreshadowed in previous movies, like his mother dying was the breaking point for him.
Yeah.
So I mean, death can have that kind of effect on people.
It can, yes.
But it definitely felt kind of like a cheap, like writing.
Well, it was like, hey, let's redeem Kylo in like 5 minutes, type of thing.
Like a couple seconds, basically.
Yeah.
Of I'm fighting you right now to, oh, you healed me. It honestly reminded me of the episode of The Mandalorian where, what's his name? He got hurt.
Oh, yeah, Grief, yeah.
Grief got hurt, and then Baby Yoda heals him, and he's like, oh, I was going to kill you, but now I'm not going to. We're friends. It's the same thing.
So Force healing apparently gives you a change of heart and like makes you a good person.
Yep.
By the end of...
Force healing for everyone, baby.
Yeah, Force healing for everyone. That's how you get to world peace.
Yep.
So let's see here. So like I talked about a little bit earlier, all the exposition, or at least like all the big answers to the questions that we've had since Force Awakens, got revealed in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Literally took like all the intrigue.
No intrigue.
No intrigue in this movie whatsoever. There was really
no mystery except for with Palpatine.
Yeah, there's no surprises in this movie. I feel like the final battle, honestly, I felt like it was very underwhelming and weak for a finale to the Star Wars story.
I don't think there's any way you could possibly live up to what people were thinking this was going to be, the final battle. I thought it was cool. Like there was a lot going on. There was a lot of action throughout the movie in general.
Sure. But I mean, I don't know. I just felt like this battle, like in particular, it didn't have like that sense of finality that, say something like the final battle in Endgame had. I mean, I don't mean to keep bringing in Endgame, but I mean, I feel like there's a lot of lessons that this movie could have learned from Endgame where they didn't. And because, you see everybody gather at Endgame, like when they're all coming through those portals, and then, Cap
you get chills.
Assemble.
Yeah, you get chills.
It's like, okay, this is it. This is what we've been building up to for like 22 movies here.
Yeah.
And so we have this movie, like I said, taking the most iconic movie franchise of all time and 42 years worth of story, and and we can't even like get a scene like that at like for the final battle. I feel like that's a fail in my book, in all honesty, especially when you're touting this as the final chapter of the Skywalker saga.
No, yeah, I liked it. It could have been different for sure.
I mean, let me
sure, go ahead.
Let me asterisk this this contention I have. If this was like a regular Star Wars battle, I think it's fine.
But not for the finale of finales.
Not for the finale of finales.
Yeah.
No.
I totally get what you're saying with that, and I agree. I thought it was a good battle, but yeah, there wasn't. I mean, the whole we have things that blow up planets thing came back with the Star Destroyers having their each own laser that blew up planets.
Yeah, so
was so stupid to me.
They just can't get away with like
that's the only thing. Like, I guess you can't get bigger than that, right?
Well, that's like the only MacGuffin that they have is like, we need a planet destroying weapon here. Which I mean, I get it. Like in terms of like a practical sense. I mean, like
it's a nuke. Essentially,
it's essentially the Star Wars version of a nuke here. However, it does make for, I feel like, just kind of lazy story writing and just like especially considering how like you have like 500 Death Stars that have like a world killing cannon basically. It's like I don't know. That seems kind of more effective than your Star Killer base that you tried to.
Well, and that was different too, because what did they call their order? It wasn't the First Order.
The Final Order.
The Final Order.
Yeah.
Which was separate from the First Order.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
But
one thing that, this is, I mean, I don't want to be unfair to this movie because this is something that has happened like for pretty much like this whole new trilogy of movies, but we don't really get a lightsaber duel that can compete with like some of the best ones out there.
We never will.
Well, I mean, I'm talking like Darth Maul's fight. I'm talking Anakin versus Obi-Wan. I'm talking Luke versus Vader in Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, I don't feel like it's really crazy to like think that yes, you could have like a really banger lightsaber fight that like, tries to rank it. I think like the closest this trilogy has come to was the throne room fight after they kill Snoke here.
Well, and that wasn't even lightsaber to lightsaber.
Yeah, it wasn't. But I mean, that's like the closest thing in terms of like, that type of quality I think we got to here,
Yeah, and I think if they do like a Knights of the Old Republic movie, we will get that just because there's so many more Jedi and Sith.
Yeah.
So it's going to be predominantly lightsaber v lightsaber combat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. And then like you mentioned, Palpatine definitely feels underutilized for essentially who's supposed to be like the main threat or the main MacGuffin of the movie here, and then the Chewbacca fake out.
Dude, that killed me inside because I was like, my jaw dropped and I was like,
oh yeah.
No,
I was sitting next to you. You looked over with me with like your jaw completely open, and I was like, "There's no way. There's no like."
I would if they did that. That would have probably been. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, that was cool at the end too, where Chewbacca finally got his medal because he never got one.
Yeah. I mean that
forgot to mention that.
Yeah, but I mean where is Maz getting all this stuff? Like Luke's lightsaber and
she's that person.
She's like a freaking
she's
like
a hoarder to the extreme.
a hoarder of like a Star Wars memorabilia here. So
So moving on to just kind of other thoughts real quick because we're gonna be wrapping up here in just a little bit, but
yeah.
Talk about you mentioned in the notes The Last Airbender.
Yeah, so I definitely felt like there were some nods or like some influences of Avatar: The Last Airbender in here.
Big time.
Because I mean,
big time.
For starters, just like the image of like we see Rey in the beginning when she's like meditating and training.
Mm-hmm.
She's like hovering in the air with like rocks kind of forming around her, kind of like how like Aang did like when he was fighting Fire Lord Ozai.
Yeah.
Like at the
when he was in the Avatar state.
Yeah, when he was in the Avatar state.
Yep.
I felt like there was like maybe a couple other times where
oh yeah,
that image was kind of used here, but anyhow, but there's also just like the whole like past living generations of like Sith and Jedi.
Yeah, so
embodied into one person. So that for the Jedi it was Rey, and then for the Sith it was Palpatine. Kind of like how in Avatar: The Last Airbender or like even Legend of Korra, all the previous avatars are essentially like living with inside the.
And they can communicate with them in ghost form.
Yep, exactly.
Which either Avatar ripped that off from Star Wars or Star Wars decided to rip it off the.
I mean, I think they kind of ripped it off a little bit from each other. I think like definitely like how.
I mean, they have Obi-Wan in the original and Yoda as Force Ghosts, but they're never as influencing as, and they're not able to communicate in the same way. Like,
yeah,
it's like you have all these Jedi living in you, and it's like,
well, I mean, because I mean, when like in the original trilogy, they portrayed like Obi-Wan and Yoda as like, yeah, these guys are just hanging out, doing their own thing, showing up every once in a while to give you like a pep talk or some advice here, or like a little bit of exposition or something like that. Whereas like in this movie, they, at least when it comes to Rey, they were like, okay, you like basically you are our avatar for the most part. We're all lending you our power to like, essentially, take down this threat. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cool the way they did that though.
I mean, I think it's interesting. I kind of feel like I do think it does raise some questions. Like, so does every Jedi have the spirit of the Jedi in them, or is it like just certain ones here,
Good question.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like that. idea that the Force connects everything, like that the Jedi believe, and so
Yeah.
I think they're just kind of playing into that. But
Yeah. So another thing I put down here is so in the final battle, Poe is in his X-wing. Now the thing that's weird about it is R2 is in like essentially the droid cockpit of Poe's ship and not BB-8, which I mean I feel like
it's fan service.
It's fan service, but I mean I feel like at this point it's like, I feel like it's fan service to the point where I'm like, why wouldn't you just put BB-8 in there, seeing how he is the one that he always hangs out with, and it makes more sense just in general. Whereas like you could have had if you had R2 in Rey's Rey's X-wing, that's also Luke's and all that. I feel
that
like
would have been cool, but I don't know if that would have been able to
I felt like that would have been a lot more fan servicey, just because that's the ship that R2 was helping Luke out in and all that stuff.
I think it was part 2 is like we have to give R2 a role in this movie.
Yeah,
because there wasn't really anything else for him to do.
Yeah. So.
All right. Yeah, we talked about Lando a little bit, which he didn't really have anything to do with the main story other than he recruited all those other rebels that they could not reach.
Yeah.
For a year.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we're going to make one final stand, and I'm Lando Calrissian, and let's do this.
I mean, Lando's got that swagger.
He does, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I liked Lando in this movie. I just don't feel like he was, like an integral role, like how, like, Leia, Luke, or Han was, like, in some of these past movies here.
Yeah. So real quick, let's do our feelings overall.
Okay. Well, real quick, just a couple other notes I want to touch on for like other thoughts here, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, I think we're at like an hour 20 already, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think just Rey adopting the Skywalker name, I thought I would be mad about that, but I'm actually just indifferent about it. You feel the same way?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it makes sense. She had metaphoric parents because her parents abandoned her, and they were more along the lines of people she looked up to and obviously learned a lot from. So I was fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So feelings overall. So I feel like this movie was fairly rushed. I feel like this is like essentially 2 movies, maybe cramped and scrunched into one. Mm-hmm. And it's really not trying to do anything new. There's no intrigue to string you along. And you and I kind of talked about this. I don't feel like there was like really like any real emotion or like, something that like really got me invested personally.
Other than Chewie almost dying.
Yeah. And it's like, because I mean, like I said, Last Jedi, I'm not the biggest fan of that movie, but there were moments where I got, very emotionally invested in. That's why I don't think it's like, a complete like waste of time movie per se here. I think it definitely has like its high highs and it also has its low lows here, but yeah, that's beside the point. So, but it's also, I felt like this movie, pretty much like 99% of it was damage control for Last Jedi here. And I mean, to be fair, we talked about how they're backed into a corner. They have to kind of do things, but it's kind of like how The Dark Knight Rises was here. They couldn't like
for sure
bring back Heath Ledger to, do the last Batman movie or the finale to a Batman saga, which I mean, you have to have the Joker for like, for that type of story. And that was kind of the same thing. You didn't have Leia who could like, be there in full capacity. You had like really you had a really tough act to follow where Rian Johnson, I felt like really like the way he did The Last Jedi almost felt like that could have been the end of a trilogy how he ended.
That's 100% how it ends.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly hard to pick up from there. I understand that.
It is. Yeah. And I mean, and yeah, they did the best what they could, but again, this is Star Wars. This deserves an endgame level finale here, and I feel like, there's been a lot of talk of like the vision of these 3 movies not having like, much cohesion or unison. And you definitely see that really come full circle in this movie, just because, like I said, like, The Force Awakens started out with, an idea and a foundation. Rian Johnson and Last Jedi pretty much like destroyed that foundation and like said
He destroyed a lot of things.
Screw it. I'm gonna do my own thing. And then, now it's like with this one, JJ has to like rebuild the foundation and also conclude everything here. So
yeah,
I mean, it's because of all those things. It's like about 2/3 through the movie, I honestly just kind of stopped caring about what was happening, and which is heartbreaking to me because I'm a sucker for Star Wars, and Star Wars is like one of the things that can get me emotionally invested in like pretty easily here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think this is a bad movie. It's just a very underwhelming one.
Yeah, and I think that's where we like kind of differentiate a little, because you would say underwhelming of the feeling of no feelings.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah, because I mean,
correct assumption?
Yeah, I would say like, I mean, I think like the biggest thing is like, it just like took out any investment that I had, like, like I said, almost halfway through the movie here. I'm not entirely sure like what was the point that did it. It might have been like when how they handled the Rey as a Palpatine reveal scene here,
Could be, yeah.
But it was like, it was honestly just like, yeah, I just stopped caring at a certain point, and I was just like, this sucks, because I want to feel something, but you're not really giving me much to like really work with here.
Yeah, and I would feel, or my feelings were just kind of mixed, I think. I felt kind of weirdly okay. Like I was just like, oh, this is okay. Yeah, I'm good with this. Like I wasn't like mad. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Sure,
I was somewhere in the middle.
You weren't starting riots in the streets or like punch dancing your way out of the theater.
I mean, I was punch dancing my way to the theater. You can ask my wife about that. I was super excited to go to the movie. Yeah. But I wasn't blown away. And I don't say that in like a negative, I guess. I was, this is not an amazing Star Wars movie. It is, however, a great action movie, I think. I mean, yeah, if you're just basing it as a sci-fi movie type deal here, I mean, yeah, it's worthy enough to stand on its own, but I think I have to give this one a little bit more of a chance, seeing it a couple more times, to really kind of definitively say whether or not I loved it or just kind of was like, whatever. Yeah. But I thought it was a great movie. I didn't feel like it wrapped up all three trilogies like they said it would. But that's an incredibly tall order. I didn't think if they did, I didn't think they were going to do it well. Yeah. It was super predictable, and the things that would have left you shocked were kind of misleading, like with Chewie and Rey dying. Like if Rey died, I think that honestly would have been better. As far as like a shock value thing.
That might have raised my opinion of this movie a little bit, just because I would have been like, oh, wow. Okay, I didn't see that coming. And as long as if they have like, a good reason or like a good way to like, have that add to the story, Yeah.
Yeah. So last kind of thing we're going to go into is where does it rank for you on from 1 to 9, because there's 9 episodes.
There's 9 episodes now.
Where's it at?
So I would currently put this at number 7.
Okay, what's behind it?
So that would be Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace.
Okay.
Yep. So I mean, like I said, I don't think this is like, a bad movie, in all honesty. I just feel like, it just does not, it's just very underwhelming, and it's like makes it hard for me personally to get invested in like at a certain point. Yeah.
So for me, my standings changed quite a bit since I've talked about this with you before, but mine's at number 6. So pretty close to yours. I would say mine's just a little bit higher.
Sure.
Behind it, I have Phantom Menace, The Last Jedi, and Attack of the Clones. I think it's going to sit there for a while until I really decide kind of what I feel about this movie.
Yeah.
In a holistic standpoint. Now, this movie changed where The Last Jedi was on my list. The Last Jedi used to be a lot higher for me.
Right.
I think because of what it did to The Rise of Skywalker and what Rise of Skywalker had to be to kind of retcon stuff that had happened, almost like lightly retcon it.
Yeah.
Like that drops it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, me personally, I would judge these movies kind of like a little bit like just on their own merits here, and I feel like...
I mean, you also have to consider it's a trilogy.
You do have to consider it's a trilogy too, yeah, which, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's it.
That's it.
That's our first deep dive. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to be heading into our weekly episode number 3 coming out later this week. And so we hope you guys enjoy that. But wanted to leave you with this. We just want to thank you guys so much for listening. We greatly appreciate it. You can check us out on all different kinds of social media. We have our Twitter, which is @YaHeardNerds. YouTube is YaHeardWithNerds, and our Facebook is the same. You can also support us directly on Patreon at patreon.com/withnerds. And don't forget, we have that giveaway. So you got to make sure you go into our social media, our Twitter, our Facebook page, or our YouTube. You got to like it, comment, and share it. And we're going to be picking a winner here very shortly. So have an awesome week. And remember, everyone's a nerd about something.
Everybody's a nerd.